church family. Welcome to the Sermon Recap Podcast. I'm Pastor John here with Pastor Mitch.
Howdy.
What's
Happy
up?
Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
I believe this is our first podcast where we're both wearing short sleeves, which tells you that summer's pretty much here, which is something to be excited about. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been sitting outside doing all the studying and reading
your
out
face
there.
shows it. You got a little sunburn.
It just feels good to sit out there. Anyway, well, yesterday we looked at Mark chapter 4, 35 to 41, a story that we are all probably familiar with if we grew up in church. Jesus sleeping in the boat and then calming the storm. So let's just jump in and see what Mark has to say here in verse 35. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. And they woke him and said, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, "Who is this that even the wind and the sea obey him?" All right. So you had the privilege of preaching this text.
Yes, sir.
What were some of the challenges that you came up with while you were studying through this?
Yeah, I mean, I shared this a little bit on Sunday, but I think with this passage, too often do we move into the storms of our life, which runs risk of missing what Jesus is literally doing, which is showing his authority over nature.
Yeah.
So we just jump so quickly to see the powerful metaphor there, which is like, while it's true, it's not necessarily what this passage is intended to display.
Right.
So I just think being careful to not make ourselves the central figure of this story rather than Jesus and his authority.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. I really liked the illustration that you gave of like, even in superheroes.
Yeah.
Where like, if you can control
weather,
it's a big
deal.
Yeah. Then you are like the mightiest of the mighty. Like the first one I thought of was like Thor.
Yeah.
Where he can bring lightning down and Anyway,
like
Thor
that was on my list. I was thinking of even just Thanos as he becomes more powerful, or you think of like X-Men, is it Storm? Yeah. So like, I actually think that's one of the worst superhero series. Like the characters are so cool, but I didn't like the movies that much. But there is a scene, if I remember it right, where like Storm shows up and comes over the water. And it's like, just like what a terrifying presence that is, because someone has authority of the weather. Yeah. And then y'all make fun of me, but also the first scene we see with the Wicked Witch of the West is her ability to control a rainstorm. And that's when they go, wow, something is really powerful about this witch. And so I just think there's even something in us that's like, if you can control the natural order of things, you are a supreme being.
Yeah. And so Jesus brings that, and he's on full display here. And it doesn't give us any details. Like, you think Moses, it says he raised his staff. With this, it just says Jesus spoke to it. Said, "Peace, be still."
Which again is what we see with, Yahweh, God of the Old Testament, is that with mere breath, he can breathe life.
Yep.
He can, he can calm the storm. And so it's just like the audible voice of God commands authority.
Yeah. No, that's good. So let's talk though about Jesus sleeping.
Yeah.
Like to me, that's like the weirdest part of this story, because you've got this massive storm. I don't imagine this boat being very big.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that. I was before we move too quickly even to the Jesus scene, I think one thing that I should have probably noted yesterday that I missed is actually in some versions of this text, or some translations, it actually says small boat. And I haven't done the homework, but there was a visitor to our church yesterday that was a former pastor that said, "Hey, great sermon. I think it would have also helped the congregation if you explain that they are on a small fishing boat being followed, because it says followed by other
many
boats,
boats,
by other small fishing boats. So they're caught in this storm, and there's all of these boats around them that are witnessing that what's happening. It's not as if they're on some cruise vessel. It's a small ship, likely.
And if you've ever been, I mean, even on calm-ish waters on a small boat, you feel everything.
Yes.
And so I'm just trying to think through, like, how do you sleep?
Yeah.
In the middle of what they call a bit massive windstorm.
Well, this is where, and I mean, I know you made this note, but what we're seeing is Jesus in all his power and authority as he gets ready to calm the storm, but also we're seeing Jesus in his humanity. He is tired.
Right.
Like he is physically,
said they were going away from the crowds.
Yeah, he is physically that like the again, likelihood is that he is sleeping because he is so tired by all the work of ministry that he's had to do. Kind of reminds me, like, in a different format, like when I was a student pastor and you'd come home from a lock-in and you could just you just could sleep all day.
Yeah.
And it's like with Jesus, it's like he just can't get away. And so physically his body's tired. And so tired enough that he can sleep through a storm that seems pretty impossible.
Yeah. No, that's
text
good.
even kind of reads like they carried him there. I noted that this time. I don't want to like overplay into that because I've not done too much homework, but it says they brought him there.
They took him to the boat with them.
Yeah, which tells me like it's like, well, you got to get here. Like, this is how you're going to get away. We got to go do some work, but you got to get away.
Yeah, that is interesting. I didn't catch that before, so that puts a whole nother spin on it. I wonder.
Yeah.
Like if he was just that exhaused that they had to carry him
regardless of how much we press into it, it's pretty well noted that it's a display of his humanity, that he is physically tired.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So we're in the sea, we're in the boat, and the disciples that are with him are afraid. They're fearful because they think that they're about to die.
Yeah.
Jesus, let's skip over the Jesus calming it real quick. He calms it, and then their fear is then shifted from the storm to now Jesus and his display of power.
Yeah.
Like, let's just talk through that for a minute.
Yeah, I think they're just as I was as I shared yesterday, I think the reason that this so all of these stories that happen in the Gospels, they're historical narrative, but they're also narrative that's written with a purpose. And so certain stories are put in certain places. And it's not as if I don't want to imply that they didn't happen in this order, but there's a reason why they're where they are. And so Mark has intentionally put these stories in this place to display that Jesus is their view of Jesus is now expanded. Yeah. And so I think that's what we're witnessing is they truly are finding out for the first time how truly powerful and how great their Messiah is. Just one example of it. And so they're almost just in shock. Or they're in awe. We keep drawing from movie references, and I don't want to do that this whole podcast, but I don't have a specific movie in mind. But if you've ever seen one of those movies where there's like the retired superhero or something, and they're no longer, they're just like playing dad at home or something, and then all of a sudden they turn back on into like superhero mode, and then it's like, whoa. Look how much power's there that you didn't even really see. Like you just saw them as something else. They saw them as dad or something of the likes. That's kind of what we're experiencing. Is like they know Jesus is powerful. They know Jesus is great, but like there's just another level that was displayed to them here that really dumbfounded them. And we have to understand too that the expectation of seeing a coming Messiah or a prophet or a teacher does not imply that God himself is going to be in their presence. That detail has not been connected yet in their mind. And so for us, we're reading into this going, how is Jesus being displayed as God? For them, they're experiencing the Messiah do things that they didn't even expect him to be able to do.
Right. And if they're expecting a revolutionary type character, then that should excite them even more in that way.
Yeah.
Like,
and so but also like, it's kind of like I've said it in that way when we talk about the fear of God, the fear of the Lord. It's this fear of like, this person is on your side.
Right.
But yet there's still a healthy fear of them, if that makes sense. There's so many examples we could go into with this, but I think of like different sporting events with someone who's just like, their athleticism isn't incredible. I will give a shout out to like Corey Freeman here, like there's been times where I'm playing sports or doing something with Corey Freeman and I see him turn on his athleticism, and I'm like, man, it's really good when that guy's on my team.
Right.
Now, is there still like a natural, like, I don't want to use the term fear, but like respect for, his athletic prowess? Man, he's got to see this clip. He's just going to love it. But it's like, yes, there is, and I think that's some of it. It's like, wow, they didn't even know how powerful he was.
Rumor has it you've still never seen him go 100%.
I know. I bet it. Man, I went up for a block on him one time, and that's the one time I think that's the one time I've seen it. The one time I was like, I was truly met with the greatness of it. So
yeah. So a lot of times when we see these stories that Mark or the other gospel writers give, they are referencing or at least shadowing back to something in the Old Testament. You made a really good reference yesterday. Well, two of them. You did Psalm 107, which when you read it, I was like, wow, if that's not a prophecy in the Psalms, I don't know what is. Yeah. And then we looked at the story of Jonah and just the parallels between the prophet of Jonah and then Jesus as prophet. So let's dialogue a little bit about that. So Psalm 107, I'm just going to turn there because I don't think I have it exactly referenced here.
Yeah, while you're getting there, I can just give a little bit of backdrop. And so when we have to think of these Psalms, I think in some ways the Psalms are written as prayers or songs to God for the people of Israel to read, to recite, to know. And so in different aspects of them, they either are written from a certain point of the Israel's history, but in some cases they're actually just kind of like more broad themes that the people of Israel would understand, that would help them connect with God from daily life. Yeah. So this is one that's written, and this portion of it is really just talking about God's greatness from the point of which of those who are at sea. Yeah. and so it's just talking about God, but yet when you read it in light of Mark, it fits so perfectly.
Yeah, it's talking in light of God, but also like these disciples, like we act like they may not have known scripture. These guys knew scripture. Yeah. They knew this text. Yeah. But so anyway, verse 23 starts like this. Some went down to the sea in ships, doing business on the great waters. They saw the deeds of the Lord, his wondrous works in the deep. For he commanded and raised the stormy wind, which lifted up the waves of the sea. They mounted up to heaven. They went down to the depths. Their courage melted away in their evil plight. They reeled and staggered like drunken men, and they were at their wits' end. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them of their distress. He made the storm be still, and the waves of the sea were hushed, and they were glad that the waters were quiet, and he brought them to their desired haven. Let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to the children of man. So, like, they're in the middle of this boat in deep distress. Yeah. And I don't think it's on accident, the words that Jesus chose.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it echoes this. He made the storm be still. Yeah. Peace, be still.
Which is displaying that they didn't yet understand who Jesus was prior to this event. Because this psalm is written from the posture. To paraphrase, it's we see the way that the waves move, and we see God's control in the waves. And as we stumble as a result of the waves in which we know God is in control of, we cry out to God for help and he calms the storm. Yeah. And so the author is seeing God's control throughout all of this. Mm-hmm. And yet when we get to Mark, what we're seeing is that they don't have they're not practicing the same understanding of God being in control of the storms when God's in the boat with them. Yeah. And so like Jesus is saying, why are you fearful? The God who controls the waves is the God that's in the boat with you. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, no, that's good. And one of the other things that may be important to point out as we talk through water and sea, in Jewish thought, one of the symbols that they look for, like we've talked about numbers and things before, but one of the other things that they look for is the sea or the waters. For them, that's a symbol of chaos or evil. And so, as you read through these and you see waters or seas, you can think of that. It's like that represents chaos, that represents evil. And God, Jesus, brings order or peace to the chaos. Yep. And so like that just adds another layer for us.
And I know you're going to dive us into Genesis chapter 1.
Yeah, eventually.
But that is a good, we'll get there. But it's a good picture too, even as we interpret Genesis. It's God creating something out of the chaos. Yeah, which we often interpret as like God creating something over the waters, over the deep, which is true, good word picture. But what actually the original hearer may have heard in reading that is order was created from chaos.
Order was from Yep. So I'll just read it right now.
That should be a mind-blowing one if you've never heard that before. Ask us more about that. That theme throughout the scriptures. Yeah.
So I'll just read that to jump us into that real quick. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light. And then the creation story just continues. So out of the chaos is brought peace, is brought creation.
Yeah, and God spoke.
Into
existence.
Yeah. No, that's good. So the other parallel that we brought up yesterday was that of Jonah. Mm-hmm.
Would you get credit for that? I tried to give you a little bit of credit in the room, but no. I mean, John and I, as we've shared, like we're growing consistently as how we even write sermons, somewhat together in some ways, you know. And so as John's working through the text, he'll share things with me, and I was sharing with you my struggle to try to preach the text in a way that didn't jump so quickly to making us the central figure of the story. Yeah. And then you shared with me, you know, even kind of in a test format, where you're like, well, what prophet in the Old Testament gets stuck at sea? I was trying to ask
you questions,
you know, and you're like, but again, it really did show this picture of, there is a lesser prophet. Yeah. Some might consider it one of the least of the prophets, but you know,
Jonah's not a good dude.
Yeah. There's a lesser prophet. Yeah. And then we see Jesus kind of walk through the same events.
And I was even talking with another person at our church, like, think about when I was looking at this, I was like, that's a parallel, but it's to like Jesus's credit. He did so much better than Jonah did in the same situation. But then later on, he says, the only sign that will be given to you is the sign of Jonah. So there's a lot of parallels between Jesus and Jonah. And I'm sitting here on this podcast telling you, I don't have the answers. I'm just saying there is something there that is a parallel that needs to be drawn out at some point. I just haven't done it yet. Yeah. And if you know that, let us know.
No, it is fascinating. I mean, again, and in the story of Jonah going to reach the Ninevites, you know, as we'll see, as Jesus is reaching to the Gentiles. Yeah. You know, and so there's so many, but that is like Jesus. And I made the point, Jesus is the greater Jonah. That's what it said on the screen. Yep. In my notes, I actually had Jesus is the greater, and then I had in parentheses the greatest, and then I had Jonah, and next to Jonah I had prophet. And so I think another way we could have said it is that Jesus is the greatest prophet. Yeah. And so what we're seeing is Jesus he's fulfilling. It's like the book of Hebrews, but like he's fulfilling all of these Old Testament roles and proving that he is the greatest expression of them. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've seen
priest, prophet, king.
Priest, prophet,
king. If you want to simply get the language, but
So yeah, in this passage, we see his humanity on full display and his exhaustion. We see his deity on display and his ability to calm the sea, to create peace out of chaos.
Yeah.
And so like in our daily lives, I know that we said that this isn't where we want to go, but like we said that in the sermon, like this is where it typically goes. And there's a reason for that. It's because
it's true.
We can trust that God has everything under control.
Yeah.
Even in the midst of chaos.
Yep. And if I was, so there's some ways to, if I was preaching next week's passage, which I'm not, Jeremy Hendon is, I would have preached, I probably wouldn't have leaned so much into the phrasing that Jesus has all authority. And I probably would have said something more specific, like Jesus has power over the natural things. Because that's what this story is about.
Yep.
Jesus has all authority is actually what the next 3 little stories are about. But I intentionally did that, 1, to set up the next couple weeks. And 2, I want that to be what we're thinking about even as we enter this Sunday.
That's good. Anything else to add today?
No, man. These are fun to talk more about. Again, this is a good passage. I even think of things that, going through my own life, and it's like, I have to, I don't even want to say practice what you preach, because that makes it seem like it's me like walking through these things. But I found myself even Sunday night as I was reflecting on the sermon going like, if this is true, how shall I respond to the present circumstances that I find in my life?
Right.
And it should breathe confidence. It should strengthen our faith. I come back to it time and time again. Yeah. But as the object of our faith grows, so does our faith. And Jesus should grow for us through these stories, and hopefully we can respond in faith to that, not because of our own power, because we just see how truly great our God is.
Yeah, it's a good word. Ascend family, you are loved. We will see you on Sunday.
See you Sunday.